Hello there, and welcome to Talking Nerdy, the show where we take various story arcs and events from current comics and we cover them. I'm your host, Obi-Wan Jabroni. Now, today's story, we have a double story for you all as we cover Onslaught Revelation and the Hellions finale, numbers 17 through 18. In Onslaught Revelation, Onslaught has returned, and to defy him, Nightcrawler has been seeking a big idea, a mutant way to unite his people while his ally Legion takes a different course. Meanwhile, over at the final issues of Hellions, Orphan-maker is on his last edge and Nanny sets him off as the Hellions come to a close in this two-part ending. With that, let's start talking nerdy. First up, we have the Onslaught Revelation one-shot, written by Cy Spurrier, with art by Bob Quinn, and colors by Java Torgalia, a choir in the wilderness. Now, we open on Krakoa, and we get various flashes of events that's happening on the island, and a monologue saying, There once was a sacred land where death had been dethroned. One day, in one of its secret places, its architect scrolled through lives like prayers on a wheel, each file a sentience, each enneagram a mutant mind, recorded and re-recorded, ghosts frozen in data and time. That, you see, was the miracle of Krakoa. For every death, a fresh body, a mind restored from backup. Did the soul perish? Was the resurrected the same as the deceased? The founding fathers didn't torture themselves with such irrelevancies, and yet, on that day, there was a certain irony to this pragmatism. Because on that day, Charles Xavier most certainly was not himself. As a matter of fact, on that day, all across the Holy Garden, very few mutants truly were. And we see, sorry, we see Pixie walking, and Nightcrawler ports in and grabs her and ports them both into a dark, smoky room. Nightcrawler says she's been compromised and that they think Onslaught feeds on the parts of souls and psychic energy lost during the resurrections. Pixie stammers and falls to her knees as Onslaught raises out of her and starts to taunt them, when Legion cuts them off, saying, well, you might want to think about exactly whose skull you're in, pal, and whose fantasies are currently in residence. Welcome to the altar, Onslaught, where all minds are one. And the scene changes, and Nightcrawler swings his sword at Onslaught and casts him out of Legion's mind temple. And we switch back to the island itself, and we get another view of various mutants and another monologue saying, There once was a sacred land where death had been dethroned, and the serpent installed it in its stead. Safe in its no place, a Krakoan bolt hole. The friend could sense one of the other puppets going dark. No matter. Those fools at Arcus, forever seeking ways to murder mutant kind, they slipped a demon god into one of Krakoa's own. Oh, they stunted their weapons, anchored it to a broken mine, trying to limit its power to match its mundane goal, to destabilize and hasten Krakoa's inevitable collapse. They sent the devil to do the work of an alligator, and he would not be stopped there. There have been frustrations, true enough. A carnage on Mars averted, a movement among the hoi polloi inching forward relevance. Too little, too late. Nothing could stop him now. The reaping was at hand. One great glorious bloodletting. That's all it would take. A feast of murdered minds. A trauma quake to upend this hollow creature and restore him to godhood. And then, oh, he could almost taste it. The bonfire of Eden. How apt that it would be to that it would be his foulest betrayer, the darkest of his fathers, who would provide the key. With a silent sneer, Charles Xavier, puppeteer, began lovingly to delete all the backups. Let the idealist try to reputate horror with big ideas. It wouldn't work. The covenant of Onslaught was raised to the deadliest foundations of them all. Nothing is stronger than hate. And we go back to the altar. Nightcrawler approaches Fabian and Lost and says it's their turn now, but they both have to let go of the hate and fear to do so. They start to argue, and Nightcrawler pushes them in a hole. As they fall, they get into a crazy psychedelic-like battle, and they both panic and fall to their knees when they hit the ground. And Nightcrawler approaches them, saying, Fabian, look at your hand. You killed her parents, ruined her life, and yet she takes your hand when you are not afraid. Do you not see what a gift it is? You're not dead, you dafty. We kidnapped you both while them onslaughts infected people were busy planning their big shindig. But you're in my house now, understand? So you will stop whining and start listening. And if you ever wet your pants in my brain again, I'll choke you with them. Sermon the first. Consider the shoal of fish. Fish. They swim through the endless depths, and they are hunted. Now should a predator attack, the shoal reacts altogether, yeah? Well, actually, no, not today. Today, one of these little crazy fish has a crazy idea. It goes left with the others turn right. What the hell happens? If it really is just a very clever survival strategy, is it not? If it is really just a shark. Because none of them know it's a one-way ticket. Now, imagine if that crazy little fish could come back from the dead. What does it do next time the shoal is in danger? It turns left again. Or perhaps it does a little dance. Perhaps it tries to jump out of the water. Perhaps it attacks the predator head on. You see, this little fish understands that playing it safe only makes sense in a world where death is the end. But it is not cheap. Being eaten is quite traumatic, I assure you. But this little fish keeps doing it. Why? Because sometimes the predator is just a shark, yeah? And nobody understands why this lunatic fish keeps going the wrong way all on its own. But then one day, the shark is a whale, and it swallows the rest of the shoal instead. Mutants not need fear sharks. But there are more whales circling us, and monsters and whirlpools than we can count. We will not survive unless we become comfortable daring to do the unexpected. Take you, Cortez. Prosperity, ambition, defiance. You have turned towards the front of the show. I am asking you today to trust me, to believe that what happens now in your heart is not cheap. It matters. You have done terrible things, Fabian Cortez, but today, whether we like it or not, the spark, it is with you. It is time you swam to the dark. It is time you tried something new. It is time you put away your pride. And Fabian looks down and quietly says, I hate myself for as long as I can remember. You won't believe this, but I was never blind to my privilege. Wealth, power, connections. Oh, I was too cowardly to throw it away, but it nagged me. I never earned anything. Now, most kids, when the X gene kicks in, they're terrified. Whole new world of otherness and exclusion. Me? I was delighted, finally getting something to fight for. Does that make me a persecution tourist? Poor little rich boy, thirsty for the struggle? Maybe. Fact is, I spent 5 minutes testing my powers and realized the joke was on me. All I do is boost other mutants. No starring roles for Fabian Cortez. No heart-stirring arcs. Spoiled brat answer the call to revelation. Learns humility and heroism. People ask why I stuck with my human name. Know why? It's 'cause nobody wants to throw a parade for Captain MacGuffin. In the end, I figure I gotta be the bridesmaid if I gotta always be in someone else's shadow. Then I pick the biggest damn shadow I could find. All those years I did appealing to his name. I set him up as a god and kept the blood sacrifice pouring in. I think I was trying to inhibit him, to wear him. If I could keep him distant up there on a pedestal, I could pretend every ripple he caused, every death, every victory, that it was mine. For good or for evil, I could pretend to matter. I mean, I failed, obviously. It takes a rare power to control an ego as big as Eric's. Damn the leaders. That's what I'd tell them if I had the guts. Damn these great men and they're too big to judge bullshit. I spent my life propping them up, outdoing their excesses like some bloody, spattered understudy. Fabian Cortez, rapid hench weasel. He'd burn the whole fucking world just for a pat on the head. You know the worst thing I could bear all that? The loneliness, the nightmares. I could live with being this poisonous little trickle of mediocrity if I had ever believed in a single one of the causes along the way. But I never did. Come to think of it, damn. I don't think I believed in anything. And Lost looks to him and says she can never forgive him, but today she don't hate him anymore. And Lost arcs back and a burst of bright light shoots from her mouth and into the sky. Back on the island, we get a montage of Pixie and Stacy X pulling more people into the altar and freeing them of Onslaught's control. As a monologue says, there once was a sacred land where death had been dethroned. In its absence, what strange rites might have bloomed, what savage cultures? But there came a day of drums and dance, when a small band sought to turn the tide, to cast radiance into the shadow that crawled in mutant hearts. They did this not only because they knew death had that day clambered back into the moldering throne, but also because they knew that if death were rendered meaningless, then life would surely follow. It's a wild night with a big finale, the way Kurt and David see it. It would be rude not to deliver. It would be rude not to deliver. Sorry. And we go back to the altar. Fabian asks what's wrong with Lost, and Legion says the buggers used Lost to sneak a vampire into the blood bank. Who knows what she went through? How many times they brought her in over the years before and after M-Day to poke and prod before they hit their big idea, a sliver of Onslaught as their Trojan horse. Who knows how they got the bloody thing in the first place at that, but I'll tell you how they smuggled it in, Cortez, where they hid it and bound it. Deep, that's where. Down where no sidekick or soul dagger could find it. In her hate. The anchored Onslaught in her hatred for you, Fabian. The hatred you just cured. Do you understand, Fabian? You just smoked out the devil himself. And the light pouring from Lost turns into a red smoke as Onslaught is expelled from her body, yelling, disgusting creatures. Ha ha ha! Drive me out, bottle me in this hovel. Deny me my festival of blood, it changes nothing. Your annihilation is required. I must feast on your absorbed features to restore my full power. You have miscalculated, mutants. It matters nothing that you refuse to murder yourself. You have pried me from my shell that was a prison, so I may impose my will upon my first and finest host. There is a fitting adage, is there not? If you want a job done properly, you have to do it yourself. Legion tells the Zorns to distract him, and he turns and joins all of the minds of the rest of the people there together. The bright light bursts from them all and envelops Onslaught. As Nightcrawler says, there once was a sacred land where death had been dethroned, and in all of it, yet somehow apart, where was another place. A place where every mutant was as important and valued as every other. A place of communion, an astral altar. There where music and light were one, where the meshing of the thought was no different than the meshing of flesh. Where every mind was as open or closed as it chooses. While devil prepared for slaughter. A voice called out in the wilderness. A voice smote to their spines and their ears and their fingertips. It told them I had been it had seen carnage averted by ice cream. It told them imperfect replication is the engine of individual. Ow, fucking sorry, my cat clawed my foot. Shithead. And love is a product of risk. I told them evil can be overcome by humility, and a new perspective can link 1,000 hearts, and all of it is the same thing. It is the power and privilege of always daring something new. He gave it a name, the old devil. We have fought him before. He knows us. He knows our fear. He is the darkness inside of us, and I think it is time to be honest. We cannot be a people without first being people imperfect and impure. We must accept our share of this shadow. So perhaps just this once, since we are aflame with all that is new, just once let us not fight this predator. Let us instead embrace it. Let us crush it with all that makes us us. Our flaws and our passions and our hearts and our hopes and our stories and our pain and our unity. Let us eat the devil. Let this be our holy sacrament. Let us grind him to gristle so that he knows, so that we know, so that all the world knows. We rule us. And Onslaught shrinks down to a small bug size, and Nightcrawler crushes him in his hand. And we switch to 2 months later. Nightcrawler entered the altars and says that the ways of X are thriving, and he has plans to use the altar as a new headquarters. Legion asks for what? Mutant cops, peacekeepers, even mutant Jedi? Nightcrawler laughs and says no. I was thinking a headquarters for the Legionnaires. And that ends this issue. Leading us to Hellions number 17. Written by Zeb Wells, with art by Steven Segovia, and colors by Rain Barado. Trauma response. Now, we open on Krakoa, and Psylocke is walking through the hangar on her way to leave Krakoa for good, when she is stopped by Emma Frost. Emma asks why she's leaving, and before they can continue, they are interrupted by the Stepford Cuckoos. They tell them that Nanny was attacked and had her ship stolen by the group called the Right, and that Orphan-maker knows about it and has stole a ship to go after them. Psylocke turns and says, I'll bring him back, and walks away. Elsewhere in the Arizona desert, Orphan-maker has made it to the Right's base and is slaughtering everyone he sees and yelling, Where is my ship and my baby brother? He takes out all of the outer guards and busts through the door and starts to kill the rest of the people inside. Back on Krakoa, Psylocke loads her gear into the Blackbird when Havoc, Wildchild, Nanny, and Greycrow approach her and say that they are going to help whether she wants them to or not. Empath joins them, and Greycrow turns on him with a gun pointed at his head, saying, Did you think I was playing? I told you I was going to kill you next time I seen you. And Psylocke pushes his hand down and tells him no, they don't have time for all of this, and then tells Empath to fuck off. He ain't coming. Back in Arizona, we see two cops standing on a nearby ridge watching the Wright's base as reinforcements show up outside. At that moment, Krakoa's Blackbird flies over them and lands at the base. The Hellions get out and immediately start to take out the reinforcements. Deeper in the base, the Wright's leader, Dr. Murick, is doing something to the smiley AI baby of Nanny's. When Orphan-maker bursts through the door, Dr. Murick instantly picks up the baby and gives him to Orphan-maker, saying, Here, he's yours. And Orphan-maker takes it and starts to soothe it when Nanny enters the room and snatches the baby up. The baby smiles and stammers mew mew a few times before its eyes glow red and it says mutant scum and blasts Nanny, killing her. Dr. Urich starts to laugh uncontrollably and Orphan-maker grabs him and snaps his neck. He picks up two guns and starts to continue his slaughter on his way outside, yelling, My Nanny is dead, and it's not funny anymore. No more laughing. and he makes it outside and comes face to face with the two cops, and he unloads onto them without any hesitation. The rest of the Hellions hear him and round a corner to find him on his knees crying and saying, "I'm sorry, I couldn't stop it. I am so sorry." And that ends this issue. Taking us to our final issue, Hellions number 18, The Losing End. We open at the Krakoan Quiet Council chambers, and we see the council sitting in their spots and the Hellions in chains in the center of the room. Professor X stands and says, "We knew this day would come, when we would be asked to sit in the judgment once more. And what a tragic day it is. The humans must know we take the three laws seriously, even when they apply to children. But he is stunted, yes, but he is neither biologically or psychologically a child. We came here so we can make a decision on what is to be done with them." And we switched to earlier that day, and the Hellions return to Krakoa from the Arizona desert and are met by Cyclops and his X-Men. Psylocke asks if this can be avoided. Orphan-maker is just scared. Cyclops says no and tells the Hellions to stand down. He don't want this to turn any worse. Grey Crow laughs and says too late for that, and punches Cyclops, saying, "Fuck off, Beamhead." Both teams charge and start to pound on each other. It goes on for a few minutes when out of nowhere all the Hellions stop fighting. An empath steps out of the shadows saying, "Did y'all miss me?" Now, back at the council chamber, Mr. Sinister stands and says, "What we say we stop tap dancing and get these rabid dogs into the pit of exile? Are we not sworn to respect the sacred land of Krakoa? Yet they harbored a mutant-hating AI on our island, then attacked the X-Men when they sought to bring the human killer to justice. And you thought yourself a fit mother, yet here you are, in shackles." He approaches Psylocke and sees that she is not shackled like he thought, and she clocks him in full force in the face. Professor X says that's enough, but Storm says one more, and Psylocke kicks him in the face, knocking out a few teeth. Sinister spits up some blood, and yells, "Gah, yeah! Did you all see the barbarism I'm expected to work with? An assault on Sinister is an assault on the Council. An assault on the Council is an assault on Krakoa. Send them to the pits now." And Emma tells him he needs to shut up before he gets muzzled and take his seat again. And he responds, "Muzzled? I am an equal of you all. Muzzle Sinister and you muzzle the Council. Muzzle the Council and you muzzle..." A few moments later, and Sinister is back in his seat with a muzzle on, scowling at everyone in the room. Magneto stands and says, "To the business at hand. After a lengthy and fair investigation, we have found that Orphan-maker acted alone in slaying 2 innocent humans. I'm sorry, Peter. You've committed the highest crime in Krakoa. You killed humans in cold blood. Is there anything you want to say?" And Peter just looks down at his feet. "Then our hands are tied by the precedents we've set. This is a terrible duty. Let's not delay it anymore. Agreed. Let justice be done. There is no society without laws. Peter, you have been found guilty, and so will be sentenced. I'm sorry. You are just a boy, and you're just a boy, but you have the body and the mind of a man since Morocco. The sentence is exile." And Grey Crow yells, "I'll burn this place to the ground," and tries to free himself from the chains as vines raise from the ground and start to wrap around Orphan-maker. Nanny enters the room, newly resurrected, and says, "Wait, I'm going with him." Professor X says no. This is Peter's fate alone. Nanny walks up to the Orphan-maker saying, I want everyone to listen to me very closely. I am Peter's nanny, and he will not go into a dark hole alone. You may stay out of my way, or you may watch, mouths agape, as I slay as many humans as it takes to rejoin my boy. I will sail the oceans of blood in the name of Krakoa. But where shall I start? Kate, how is Terry? Still living at 412 Central Avenue? What? Leave my mom out of this. What did I even do? You presumed to sit by while a ward of nannies is cast into darkness. You dared to dream that I'd let him go alone. I failed him once. I won't do it again. Don't worry, Peter. Your nanny is here now. And Magneto says to let her go, and they both get pulled into the pit as Nanny sings Orphan-maker in nursery rhyme. The Hellions turn to leave now, unchained, and their heads down. A few days later, we see Empath with the old original Hellions team, and Grey Crow watching him through a sniper scope from a nearby hill. When Psylocke comes up behind him and asks him if this is the best way to spend his time, Grey Crow doesn't turn to look. He continues to look through the sniper scope and says, So you're staying, huh? Gonna be a big shot captain again? This is what I'm gonna do. From where I'm sitting, it's got nothing to do with you. Like you said, Krakoa doesn't ask us to deny our nature. And she smiles and says, Krakoa isn't asking you, John. I am. Now, elsewhere on the island, we see Cyclops approach his brother Havoc and say, I'm still digging into the incident in Brooklyn, and I'm not liking what I'm finding. You're my brother, not a pawn, and I can see how you and Emma think you deserve something for your many sacrifices. Even with the relaxed protocols, bringing her back comes with a lot of complications. I'm married to one of them, which is why I'm surprised Emma was able to smooth everything out. What do you mean? Just follow me, Alex. And Cyclops tells them to follow him, and they enter a room to find the newly resurrected Madeline Pryor standing and waiting for them. Alex and her embrace, and she says to give her a few minutes to get ready, and they'll go out for drinks. He leaves, and she turns to look in the mirror, and we see her reflection is not that of Maddie, but of the Goblin Queen, as she smiles. Now, elsewhere at Emma's White Palace, Magneto and Emma Frost are standing on a balcony, and Emma says, this has the potential to get very messy. But what's a little mess in the service of frustrating the schemes of Nathaniel Essex? It's truly one of my favorite things. The work will continue because I have eyes that see, ears that hear, and enough sense in my head to know that Mr. Sinister is a cancer. And Magneto lowers his head and says, Yes, he is. And it's a shame he's allowed to walk free. But for all our power, we are still a small nation. And if there's one thing a cancer knows how to do, it's grow. And that ends all of the Hellions. I hope you enjoyed the video this week. Join us next week as we celebrate the 750th issue of Avengers with Avengers Free Comic Day 2021 and Avengers number 50. Thanks for watching. As always, remember to like, subscribe, and share our videos to help spread our brand through the world. Also, leave a comment down below. Feedback is always welcome. Now, you can also find us on the Jabroni Nerd Facebook page. So, with that, until next week, guys, keep talking nerdy.